Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm your host Sandman. Today I'm going to be discussing the Lockpickers United LPU belt ranking system for lockpicking. Let's get into it. So I get a lot of questions about it, and this video is probably not going to answer all those questions, but I just had a beef I wanted to get off of my chest. I help admin for a couple Facebook groups online for locksport, and someone posted a picture of a yellow belt level lock that they were so happy that they had picked, and they had just got their yellow belt. And you know, they were just super excited and wanted to share, and everybody was congratulating them except for one loser in the group. And that person said, stop talking about the belt ranking system. There's no such thing. Not every yellow belt lock is going to pick the same. You could have 10 of these locks and they will all pick different. And, you know, not all of them will have the same key bitting or the same key or pin, you know, sizes. Not all of them will have the same tolerances, blah, blah, blah. He said, stop talking about it. So I promptly removed him from the group because this is not the hobby for you. I don't care if people don't participate in the belt ranking system, but I'd be damned if somebody's going to shit all over somebody's excitement of their recent achievement, no matter how little or great that is. And that just tells me that the person does not understand the difference between the belt ranks and the monumentous achievements that people are getting when they get their black belt level lock. I also had a locksmith laugh at the idea that we are giving people black belts in lock picking, and he did not belong in that group either. So I wanted to talk about some of that. So let's talk about first, what are the different types of locks before we can go into this? We have wafer locks. We have pin tumblers. We have disc detainer locks. We have lever locks. We have slider locks, like your vehicle slider keys, the laser cuts, sliders. We have pump push locks, very similar to a tubular lock, but not. There are so many locks. We have magnetic locks, electromagnetic locks, electronic locks, and so forth. This list can go forever, honestly, but I'm going to focus this point of conversation on the pin tumblers only. So just pin tumblers. So what is the difference between belts? Let's start talking about the difference between pin tumblers. So a pin tumbler is just going to be a lock that has holes drilled or pin stacks drilled through the Bible and the plug. Now, I've never seen a lock with, we'll just do circles for pins, for key pins. So I've never seen a lock with less than 3 pin tumblers, but I have seen locks with 3 pin tumblers, and those are going to be your luggage locks. Okay, those are white belt level. And then we also see master locks and Brinks locks. You know, cheap padlocks for $5 at the grocery store or the hardware store. Those are all white belt level. Okay, I'm going to draw a line here to differentiate. And then we see a 5th pin, and those are typically going to be Schleg locks and quick set locks, locks that are going to be on your front door. And those are yellow belt level. And then we have 6-pin tumbler locks, and those are going to be a lot of commercial, mostly. You know, like a Schleg Everest is typically going to have all 6 pins in it. So that's that. And then we have so that would be, we'll just call that a Schleg Everest is actually green belt level, but we're seeing that there's a difference from white to green here. So now we have a total of also a green belt level lock with 6 pins is going to be a PAC 90A. Now we have 7 pins here, and we see a PAC 90A Pro with 7 pins, and then we start seeing our blue belt level locks that have interchangeable cores such as Best, Marks, and Falcon and Schleg, you know, small format IC core, SFIC, okay, 7-pin. I don't see too many locks above 7 pins, though they do exist. There are actually keys that go all the way out to 12 pins. Some of those interact with Euro profile cylinders. I have a lock from Mexico where the key is like 5 inches long. It's crazy. So for pin tumbler locks, we see anywhere between 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 pins on the average, and that's just the key pins. All right, let's talk about the security features. We have keyways. So this is a keyway. The opening of a lock is considered the keyway. This particular keyway looks like this. What is that for? That's for access control. Access control can mean key control. It can also mean to keep me from being able to insert objects to simulate the key, such as lockpicks. So this is slightly paracentric. What does slightly paracentric mean? Well, if I do an expanded view of this, the center of this keyway, is right here. That's the center of this keyway. And the center draws right through the warding. So that means this is all brass, and the brass goes past the center of the keyway right there. So that means it is slightly paracentric. So that means I cannot just stick a tool into the bottom of my keyway and lift up. I cannot just take a shim and stick it in there and impression it. I have to find a tool or a key that is the right keyway, the right shape. So this is key control or access controlled for keys. And if I'm going to pick a lock, I can only insert my lockpick right here and pick at this angle right there, or I have to insert my lockpick right here and pick upwards. But with this particular keyway, these pins are going to be resting right here on the warding. So the second I insert a lockpick right here, I may be oversetting my key pins. So I have to actually pick this lock from this angle right here and gently nudge the first couple key pins to see if they will set. So that is keyway. We're going to KW, okay? So let's empty this. So we have the number of pins. So let's start off with 4, and this is going to be our white belt. And then we also have a keyway. It's not just wide open, but some of these can be. As a white belt, it can be just open as all get out, all right? So wide open, it's not paracentric. The keyway is not paracentric, okay? And then we don't have security pins, 0 security pins, all right? And then we don't have security features, 0 security features. However, you are correct. If I have 10 master number 3 locks, if I have 10 master number 3s, sorry, there's a glare there. If I had 10 master number 3s, there's going to be a spectrum. Some of the masters are going to be easier than others. This spectrum is on a scale of difficulty 1 through 10. If I have 10 of them, yeah, one's going to be like a 1. I just have to just manipulate one of those key pins and boom, it opens. But then one of them is going to be super difficult. Either the tolerances, or maybe it has grime or junk or dirt in the lock. Maybe the pins are corroded. Maybe the springs are worn out or broken. Yeah, there is a spectrum here of easiest to hardest. However, none of these locks have any added security features whatsoever. We have not made the lock harder to pick. It's just harder on a spectrum for that particular lock. It's still a white belt level lock, okay? So let's talk about yellow belt and how is that different from white belt. Yellow belt, we start to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key pins and drivers. We start to see a slightly paracentric keyway, but that's not really its defining feature. So we'll just count that as 0. Like Schleg SC1 is slightly paracentric, but we also don't see any security pins and no more security features. However, one thing that we do see that we don't see in white belt is we see tolerances. We actually see better manufactured locks. The absolute worst locks in the world are going to be ranked as a white belt. Doesn't mean we don't see loose, sloppy locks as a yellow belt or orange belt or green belt, but I do see tolerances starting at yellow belt because yellow belt is where we see Quicksets, where we see Schleg, it's where we see all the residential locks, okay? So this is white and this is yellow. Let's go to orange, and for orange, we start to, we still have these 4 to 5. We're going to see 4 to 5 pins, but we start to see paracentric keyways. Whoop. Sorry. Wow. What the heck? We see keyways that are paracentric in nature. And we also start to see the introduction to security pins, which is going to be 1 to 3 tops. I don't think there's too many 4-pin locks that are here with security pins. There are 0 security features, but we still have some tolerances that we are dealing with here. This looks gross. Sorry. Here we go. My OCD coming through. Okay. Now we're up to green belt. Here's green. And now there's still a spectrum in here, but we're going to talk about a secondary spectrum. And that is, we have green belt, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and as many as 6 pins. We do have our paracentric keyways. We have security pins, but they go all the way up to 6 pins now. And we still don't have any security features. Actually, no, we do. We have a security feature, and that is the Schlage Everest check pins. We start to see minor security features such as that. But it's such an easy feature, but it is a security feature. You can't just bump this lock with a bump key. You have to have a Schlage Everest bump key. You can't just put a Lishi tool in there that's an SC1, because this is a C123 keyway. So it has key control and it has that minor security feature, and they have super good tolerances. We're going to put a check mark right there for that tolerance right there. So that's the difference between white through green. If I look at green belt, however, let's talk about the spectrum of green belt. We have the American AM 1100. Okay, we have Pack Lock 90A. Let's talk about Abus 72 series. And let's talk about, Abus 82. What is that? Is it an 82? I don't know. This is enough. Okay, the American 1100 has 6 pin stacks, but only 5 pins, typically. 5 pins, but they're all security pins. And there's no security features, but there's decent tolerances. However, the Packlock 90A has 6 pins. All 6 pin stacks are filled. It has 6 security pins, decent tolerances, and the only security feature is that the 6th pin, it only has 5 security pins because the 6th pin is actually an anti-bump pin. But it has overlift pins. I wouldn't call that a security feature, but that is very smart that they use those overlift pins, 0 lift. So, or someone could call them minimal lift. That means that you have to lift them a little bit, but if you lift them too much, they can overset. But we'll just keep it at this. And then we also have the Abus, which is a 6 pin. This guy's an asshole. And all 6 are security features. We also have a very highly paracentric keyway and very good tolerances. Yes, the American lock is the easiest of these. I think the 90A is easier than the Abus 72. So there is a spectrum. Okay, there is a spectrum from easiest to hardest within green. But they're all still green belt. They all still fall in line with this right there. They don't step out of that. All right. So someone said, stop talking about yellow belt locks. They're all different. None of them are the same. You are correct, but they are all still yellow belt level locks. That's what I love about the genius of this. I like to give advice that when people say, Sandman, I have trouble picking blue belt locks, or I have trouble picking purple belt locks, what should I do? I tell them all to go back to green and pick all the green belt level locks. And because there's such a huge spectrum of difficulty in the locks that are green belt level, but they are all still green belt level. I think if you were to create 20 belt ranking levels in this system instead of 14 or 15 that we have, 1 through 9, which is white through black, and then, you know, 10 through 15, which is, you know, all the dons, second don, third, fourth, fifth don, etc. If you were to add 20 levels, I would take some of the greenbelt locks and I would stretch them out a bit because they are so difficult. But they are not high security locks, and they are not low security. They are locks with security pins, but not security features. That happens when we get to blue belt. Blue belt is when we start seeing our security features. Let's talk about that. So at blue belt, we start seeing anywhere between, I would say, 4 or 5 pins, because some of the Medico locks I think are 4 pin on blue belt. It's either 4 or 5. I think they're 4 pin cam locks. So we'll call it 4 as a minimum, and we see as many as 7, a total of 7. I don't think I've ever seen an 8 pin blue belt lock, but there are some high pin count locks. So we have a 7 pin blue belt. We do have keyways that are paracentric, and we will see all 7 of these security pins with as many as 7 security pins. And then we also have a security feature, at least one security feature with good tolerances. Security features such as Medico pins. We see some multi-lock pin and pin, and we see as blue belt, interchangeable cores. So we have multiple shear lines, but only one shear line can rotate clockwise, which is the control shear line. We also have check pins on some of those interchangeable cores, like Sargent, I guess it's called XC or something like that. I don't remember, but you know, we have check pins there. So that's blue belt. So this is the entry level into high security. This is like a little gray area where we're stepping away from locks that just have security pins, and we're starting to understand and learn about security features, not security pins, but security features. These guys right here. That's where we start messing around with that. Yeah, just being able to pick a pin tumbler lock is not going to guarantee you're going to get into an interchangeable core cylinder. Those suckers are difficult. So then we have our purple belt right here, and these are all high security locks from this point going forward. So these can have anywhere from 5 pins. I've never seen one less than 5, but they could exist, but 5 pins. And then we also have pin and pin technology. So these could also have a total of 10 pins. So that's a thing. So pin inside of a pin. We also have the keyway paracentric that's going to happen. We can have all security pins, so SP10, and all 10 of those can be security pins. And we also have security features. I'm going to call this 2 because we have sidebars, and we also have interactive elements, and we also have pins that have to be rotated, which will have false gates and true gates. And then we have extremely good tolerances. So Medico, multi-lock are my favorite ones at purple belt. We also have the Ruco and ASA 500, and those are very unique. Let's talk about purple. From purple, we go to brown belt. That's the rank I'm at now, so my knowledge after this is probably going to start to slow down and simmer. And so at brown belt, we have the same principles that we have at purple belt, but they're just going to be a little bit harder as we provide different security pins to these. So our security pins, we'll just call that a 11, and we still have our paracentric keyways, and we have security features, but we can call this a 3 on the security feature scale because we may, off the top of my head, I can't think of, okay, so brown belt, we have finger pins for a Primus. So a Primus will not only have a, 6 pins, they could be security pins, but we'll also have finger pins that have to be lifted to different heights. And that's super difficult because there's as many as 5 finger pins. So that's like picking 2 locks in one. And then we have extremely good tolerances here. I don't see them being much better tolerances than purple belt, but that's where we're at. And we're just going to lump red and black belt in the same category because I am still trying to learn how to pick red and black. I don't want to punch above my weight class here in knowledge. But these guys, we can have high pin count locks. So these can have as many as 18 pins. and then we can have 7, highly difficult security pins. Security pins. So, and we'll talk about security pins here in a second. We can have multiple security features. So we're talking about sidebar locks, such as like the ASA Twin and ASA Combi and ASA blah, 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 blah. So the security feature, we're going to call that a 4 because they're super difficult. And they have sliders and all kinds of different crazy stuff. And the tolerances are even better. The tolerances are freaking fantastic on these locks. So much so that from purple belt to black, you have to use a special, Medico requires you to use a special lubricant. You can't just use whatever you're using on these beginner locks here. You're gonna have to use a non-oil based, whatever lubricant. So let's stop right there because that's my knowledge is starting to tap out here because I only go so far myself. Let's talk about actual security pins. So if we're just talking about the driver pins by themselves, I kind of rank this in a level of difficulty from easiest to hardest, but a lot of these I actually haven't picked, so that's just a guess. But driver pins, we have standard, we have spool, we have serrated spool, double spool, mushroom, hourglass, graduated, trampoline, tapered pin, T-pin, pin and pin standard, pin and pin spool, pin and pin serrated. We have barrel pins, we have barrel spooled pins, pyramid, interlocking, magic dom, gin, bottle spools, Christmas tree, wafer pin, rattlesnakes, and this is not even complete. This is probably just majority. So I've picked a lot of these, but not all of these. I would like to tell you that it is probably quite accurate that if I were to take these and I were to cut this right about here, this is all white through green belt. And then these T-pins, pin and pin technology. I've never picked the T-pin, but a pin and pin is going to be started out around blue because that's where we see some multi-lock. And then we also see ARX pins, which is a key pin. And so everything from here down, so like barrel locks, I think the barrel pins are actually, not barrel locks, but barrel pins like the Master 19 is actually going to start at purple belt. So this is all high security right here. I may have a couple of these messed up, but from my understanding, you're really going to see these in high security locks. And these all right here are going to be our lower security locks. Okay, so there is a spectrum, yes, but we're really not adding security features, are we? Okay, but the security feature in these is that it's the pin, and you have to learn all of these individually. A standard pin feels different from a spool, feels different from a serrated, and a serrated feels different from a serrated spool, and a double spool, and a mushroom. These are all different, and that's what I love about the belt ranking system. Like all of these pin and pins are all going to be around the purple belt. The barrels are going to be purple belt, and barrel spools, I haven't seen any of those, but let's just call this, let's cut that off at purple belt. And then everything else from here, barrel spool, pyramid, interlocking, dom, that's like brown belt and up. So an interlocking driver pin is going to be your Corbin Russwin, your doms. I don't remember what belt the ranks those are, but then we start to see some gin and bottle. I've seen some gins, I think as low as blue belt. I could be wrong with that. I thought my ASA Ruco may have had gin spools, but let's assume that it may start higher than that. But these are super difficult. We're going to see these in a lot of the black belt level locks. And I've never done a wafer pin or a rattlesnake. I'm just assuming that's a black belt level lock. So let's talk about the key pins. The key pins can be all different shapes and sizes too. We have torpedo, torpedo serrated, serrated spooled, and ARX like in our medical pins. Then we have side pins, and side pins can have false gates, and they can have false gates for lifting and rotating. You may have to just lift the side pin. You may have to rotate and lift the side pin. Good Lord, sir. Then we have interactive elements, so magnets, alpha pins like the MT5 Plus by Multipick, and check pins like the Everest pin, and magnets like the interactive element and stuff for key control. So I could be wrong with that. I don't think it's actually a magnet. I apologize, but there are locks that have a magnet. So that's what I was trying to get across with this understanding the belt ranking system. It's not just locks that have just been thrown into ranks of 1 to 9 and people gave them belt ranking colors. These people have mastered physical security that put this together. They have mastered physical security. They get this better than I at least ever will. And that's what's amazing about this. I absolutely love it. I have dedicated, I've dedicated the past year of my life to trying to get to black belt, and I'm still not there. And if it takes me another year to get the black belt, it'll be a 2 years well served. Like it would be a worthwhile to do it. And I really do think that it will make you an expert, not just in lock picking, but it teaches you about the differences of the security features in locks. And this is just pin tumbler locks. This isn't even talking about the list of different types of locks that we have. People will always try to tell you that what you're doing is a waste of time. And that's just because they're not doing it themselves. Probably because they can't, or they're afraid of failing. People are intimidated by this. People will say, well, there's no point in being able to pick a black belt level lock that has a high pin count of 18 pins and blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe picking the lock is not the point. Maybe just understanding what makes it different from the lock that's on my front door is. And that's what I love most about the Lockpickers United belt ranking system. This is teaching me about locks. That's really all it is. So when people go into these social media groups and they immediately complain and say that the belt ranking system is dumb, it doesn't make any sense, it's stupid, it's a waste of time. I see locksmiths, because I saw a locksmith complain about it, and he's like, what do you have to do to get a black belt? And someone, unfortunately, who didn't understand the belt ranking system said, well, you have to show your competence in lock picking and rekeys, and you have to do side quests like lock impressioning and safe manipulation or safe dial and stuff like that. And the locksmith replied, oh, well, shit, I've been a black belt for 20 years, if that's the case. He didn't understand it because the person didn't know how to explain it. And yeah, I've spent the past 26 minutes trying to explain it myself. All I can say to all of you that have made it this far is that this is a worthwhile journey, and you will not truly understand it until you get to it. Case in point, I'm a brown belt, and I do not understand red or black just yet. I understand the few that I have picked and the few that I am working on. I have picked an ASA 700. I can talk about how to pick that all day long. And I am working on a Goal Z, but I haven't picked it yet, therefore I cannot talk about it. I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to red and black. So if you haven't done it, you will not understand it. So if you haven't made your way from white to black, you're not going to understand it. And if you have never even made the attempt of white to green, you're not going to appreciate or understand this. I would like to recommend that anybody that's into lock picking, look at the LPU Belts website, which I'll provide in a link down below, and just understand, like, every single lock on there, just about like 90%, have pictures of the differences between those locks and all the other locks. The pictures show the security features or the lack thereof. They show the security pins or the lack thereof. And I just hope people will create a more appreciation of what this system does for us as lock pickers. That's all I have for today, folks. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm sure I butchered this, but I did my best to try to explain from my perspective the difference between all of these pin tumbler locks. I hope this was helpful and helpy. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was constructive. But let me know in the comments down below if I did okay and if there's anything that I should add. Because this is kind of like the stuff that I teach when I do my locksport group stuff, when I go to conferences. I don't get this far in the detail, but this is my understanding of the difference of locks. This is how I see it. So that's all I have for today, folks. I'll catch you guys next time.